Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. Happy Friday, it's May 30th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. The Planning Commission in the city of Fresno has a major project on its hands, but at a recent meeting, the decision was made to delay a vote on it.
It was likely the most important vote that they were going to take this decade, and at the last second, they pulled it from the agenda.
What this project means for the city's housing and its future, that's coming up in just a few minutes, but first, these news headlines. Debate continues to heat up around state track and field championships this weekend in Clovis, where a trans female athlete is competing. As KVPR's Carrie Klein reports, local leaders on Thursday called for the student to be disqualified.
Tiffany Madsen is among those who spoke during a press conference in Clovis. She's a Clovis Unified trustee.
These female athletes deserve a level playing field. This is not about politics. It's not about hate. It's about protecting the integrity of female sports.
But most of the speakers referred to the athlete as a boy rather than her preferred pronoun. Fresno County Supervisor Gary Bredefeld called trans people disturbed and in need of help. Clovis LGBTQ resident Stetler Brown says this is no way to have a conversation.
I'm not here to debate the merits of having trans folks in sports, but what I am here to say is that rhetoric is actually dehumanizing.
The athlete has recently been the subject of rallies, rule changes, and even a social media post by President Trump. For KVPR News, I'm Carrie Klein.
On Sunday, Mexico will hold nationwide elections to decide over 800 judicial positions. This is expected to radically transform how justice is administered in the country. And as KVPR's Samantha Rangel reports, Mexican citizens in the San Joaquin Valley are watching closely.
Mexico will stand out from the world after this weekend's elections. Once voting is over, every judge in Mexico will have been elected democratically. Refugio Vázquez Sanchez from Guanajuato, Mexico, has lived in Fresno for 23 years. He says, despite this major change, he holds doubt in the new model.
No es el camino, no es un ejemplo para nadie.
He says there's a reason nobody has tried this before, because it doesn't seem to carry many benefits. Although Vázquez will not take part in this election, he's urging friends and family in Mexico to exercise their right to vote. But he still worries that this major change to the country's judicial system may bring more problems.
Somos una economía muy fuerte.
He says Mexico is gaining power, but there seems to be a regression. These elections, he says, will allow judges with little experience to take power and compete with judges who have decades of experience. For KVPR News, I'm Samantha Rangel.
The Fresno Teachers Association is calling for an investigation into Fresno Unified. The union alleges that a school district document contains fabricated information. The district accused the union of targeting Superintendent Misty Herr and put together a document collecting comments about her. But the FTA alleges that those quotes attributed to the union appear to be made up. The ordeal comes after months of tension about Herr's appointment, which has divided the union and the school district. Temperatures could reach up to 105 degrees this weekend in parts of the San Joaquin Valley. A heat advisory is in effect until Sunday, and health officials are warning residents to use precaution when going outdoors. This is the first major heat wave of the year. It's expected to be quick and should subside by the start of next week. Many cities throughout the valley plan to activate cooling centers for the weekend.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from Body 20 in Fresno's Fig Garden Village, offering full-body electromuscle stimulation training sessions. It's a high-tech, time-efficient way to help preserve and rebuild lean muscle. Each 20-minute one-on-one session is guided by a certified coach using FDA-cleared technology. Body 20 accepts health savings account cards. More information available by searching the Fig Garden location at body20.com.
And now to our main story. Ask someone what they think of housing in the valley, and you'll probably hear this common refrain. There's not enough, and it's gotten expensive, especially after the pandemic, when remote workers could relocate from LA and San Francisco to cheaper, more spacious homes. The laws of supply and demand would say that more housing could help lower prices. But that's not quite what's happening here. And a potential housing development in Fresno is only adding to the question of how to address housing in the valley. A development that would include 45,000 homes is being considered in the southeastern part of the city. Gregory Weaver is a reporter at Fresnoland, a partner of the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, and he's reported extensively on this project. Some are even calling it the new version of Clovis.
So everybody that I talk to knows of this thing as SADA. It's the acronym for Southeast Development Area. And it's about a 9,000-acre proposal in southeast Fresno. And the Dyer administration imagines that this thing could help provide maybe up to 50% of the new homes into the 2050s.
That's Dyer, as in Fresno Mayor Jerry Dyer. SADA has been in the works for years, but at this point, recent financial reports show this project could actually be a liability for the city of Fresno to pursue. It's a multi-billion-dollar proposition and may not actually move the needle toward making Fresno more affordable. Plus, there are signs that Fresno's population growth is waning. So by the time these homes are built out, the city could be facing a different population landscape. So in this interview, I asked Gregory, despite those facts, do we know what's driving this area's development?
Well, this is a big open question in this story because Fresno isn't growing as fast as it used to be. And the State Department of Finance, they're kind of the gold standard predictor for population growth projections, says that Fresno's actually going to be losing its population starting in 2055. This is just due to there's less people moving to Fresno, and people aren't having as many babies anymore. And so what the city's report shows is that SADA, even under the most idealistic scenarios, is only going to be about 35% built out by 2050. And so as our total population starts going down, are they going to be able to sell out the remaining, 2/3 of those homes? I think it's an incredibly important question. It's possibly the most important question for a Fresno resident, because what if the city bonds out billions of dollars in infrastructure and the developers don't end up selling all those homes that will pay off that debt? It could be residents who are left holding the debt. And so this is the major question of the Dyer administration right now. Who's going to take on this debt?
And this isn't a new question, though. This SADA development's been a conversation for a while, right?
So SADA emerged in the mid-2000s during this time in Fresno when we were building something like 3,000 homes a year. And it was due to, credit being so cheap. Everybody knows the subprime mortgage crisis, the lead up to it, Fresno, the boom town, 2005. Let's bring those days back,
Or not.
So SADA tracks a subprime crisis almost exactly. The final paperwork is delivered to the city in September 2008. That's the month that Lehman Brothers crashes. And so it was shelved for a few years, and it was only brought back in 2023 by Dyer as house prices picked up and the promise of building these homes in southeast Fresno and potentially the large dividends it could bring to developers became a possibility again. And that's why Dyer brought it back.
Now, where does he stand on the issue today? Because it kind of sounds like his opinion's evolving.
It's not exactly clear. SADA has two major parts of it. There's the part on that's largely, you can imagine adding on a new part of Clovis. It's in East Fresno, north of the 180. That's a part that has major infrastructure costs. It doesn't have a sewer line. It doesn't have a water line. And so that stuff needs to get built out before they start planning homes there. That's the part that Dyer is in public meetings has been a bit shaky about due to, who's going to hold that debt. It's going to take decades if it ever gets paid off. And who's going to be paying interest on all that debt for decades? Everybody knows, interest rates where they are now, and probably in the future, it's the interest that kills you. He's only come out in support of the south portion. He calls it South SADA. And it's a pocket of homes, about 10,000 south of Jensen Avenue. And developers aren't super enthused about building in that area. It's not in Clovis Unified, which carries a 6-figure premium. There's a lot more money to be made in building in Clovis Unified. And so it's a matter of will Dyer be able to get the support of the council and the Building Trades Association with the South SATA portion only? And how is he going to proceed with this east portion of SATA that, most of the private sector really wants to build right now?
Okay, now the Planning Commission needs to meet and approve moving forward. Sounds like, based on your reporting, they stand a little differently on this issue than Dyer. Bring us up to speed with what's going on with the City of Fresno's Planning Commission.
So last week, the Dyer administration wanted the Planning Commission to take the first steps to approve this 45,000 home proposal. It was likely the most important vote that they were going to take this decade. And at the last second, they pulled it from the agenda. To give an idea, this was a vote to vote on the final documents for the Southeast Development Area for SATA, and those final documents hadn't even been completed yet. And so there were significant portions that they hadn't ironed out. They had only revealed this $4.3 billion infrastructure price tag for SATA about 24, maybe 48 hours before the Planning Commission meeting. So there was a ton to digest. Not all the documents are finished. And so ultimately, this agenda item got pulled, and it's unclear when this is going to come back to the Planning Commission.
I want to revisit a point you hinted at earlier, which is that the City of Fresno is pursuing SATA despite their own financial analysis showing that it's not viable. Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, so the city, I think it's one of the first times they've ever tried to do this, is what are the total costs of sprawl? I think one of the major complaints of these sort of new developments is that a lot of residents' tax revenue gets parceled out to the fringe of town to build their infrastructure. And so one thing Dyer's committed himself to doing is making sure that SATA can pay for itself. So his first step was to figure out what are the total costs. And one of the major conclusions from this report that the city got from its economic consultants was that it's unlikely that the private sector would take on all the debt that is required to build SATA. There's $4.3 billion in infrastructure costs, and the total value to be made by selling all those homes is about $10 billion. So basically what the report found is that the costs of infrastructure are way too high in comparison to the revenues that can be generated from selling all these homes. And so the private sector, they really only sign off on infrastructure making up 15%, 20% of their revenues. And what this financial report found was that even the phase that Dyer likes, South SATA, it's 30% of the revenues. 30% of the revenues would get eaten up by the infrastructure costs. And so on a cost-benefit analysis from the private sector, this report said that it's unlikely they're going to cough up all the billions of dollars that'd be required. So they still haven't answered this question. Who's going to be left holding this money for the infrastructure?
So what can we expect in terms of next steps at this point? Do we know when it's coming back to the Planning Commission?
I think it's a major thing with the Dyer administration of they're only going to put this thing forward if they know they have the votes. And so I think right now, I don't know how supportive the city council is of, a proposal like this with massive unfunded financial liabilities, them signing off on that. I think there's a lot of things that the Dyer administration has to solve if these things are even solvable. I mean, how can you move forward with a 45,000 home proposal that is only going to be 1/3 built out by 2050? It's going to have, over 20,000 unbuilt homes that would be used to finance this debt that this project needs. These are massive unsolved problems, and it's going to require a lot more discussions from the city council and the Dyer administration on moving forward on this.
That was Fresnoland reporter Gregory Weaver. Thank you so much for breaking this down.
Thank you.
And that's today's show. Have feedback for Central Valley Daily? Let us know. Just email podcast@kvpr.org. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
Planet Money helps you understand the economy. We find the people at the center of the story.
Garbage in New York, that was like a controlled substance.
We show you how money influences everything.
Tell me what you like by telling me how you spend your money.
And we dig until we get answers.
I had a bad feeling you were going to bring that up.
Planet Money finds out. All you have to do is listen. The Planet Money Podcast from NPR.